the most beautiful jewelry with a great history. In 1864, in Novocherkassk, archaeologists found a collection of ancient jewels from the 1st century AD. One of the finds was the golden crown of a noble priestess. It consists of a wide hoop with images of people and animals. The inserts of colored glass and garnets add special value to the crown. The crown is crowned with deer figurines, and in the center is an antique gem with a bust of a woman, possibly a Greco-Roman goddess. This crown was not just an ornament, but also a symbol uniting the world of people and animals. Among the many ornate crowns, the crown of the Polish monarch August the Strong stands out. It is characterized by conciseness and the absence of unnecessary details. The gilded frame consists of a wide hoop and 4 half arches decorated with heraldic lilies. The crown was made in 1697, when Augustus took the throne. The stones have a clear geometric shape: sapphires, rubies, diamonds, and spinel. A large elongated sapphire crowns the crown. Augustus the Strong was not an outstanding ruler. Under him, Poland weakened. The army was reduced by 4 times, and it was based on foreigners. The princes of the British royal family often chose love, sacrificing family responsibilities. Edward VIII abdicated the throne for Wallis Simpson, a twice-married woman with a dubious reputation. She did not become queen, but thanks to her marriage with the Duke, she had the opportunity to buy expensive jewelry. Wallis was a regular customer of Van Cleef and Arpels, and in 1937 her husband gave her a brooch in the form of a thistle flower with diamond petals. In the photo from that year, the decoration fixed in the Duchess's hair looks great, complementing her magnificent hairstyle. American socialite Barbara Hutton possessed beauty, wealth, and a collection of jewelry, but she did not find personal happiness. She tried to compensate for the lack of love with luxurious jewelry, choosing only the best. In 1944, her jewelry box was filled with fairy and ballerina brooches from Van Cleef and Arpels. She associated these miniature pieces with freedom and luxury, helping to heal a broken heart. For Hutton, jewelry was of great importance. She wore them not only to events, but also at home, even in her pajamas. Her fingers were often decorated with rings with huge crystals. Victorian England surprises with original decorations. The Eye of Passion is a jewel with the image of a loved one's eye. It was usually not the eye of a spouse, but of a lover or mistress. Such eyes were decorated with brooches, rings, pendants, and cufflinks. They were framed with pearls, turquoise, or diamonds, depending on the wealth of the owner. The locket with the hidden eye or lips of the beloved looked especially elegant. Today, such decorations seem strange, but for the youth of the 19th century, they were commonplace. Many of the jewels of the Russian princesses disappeared in the flames of the revolution. However, some of them were returned after 100 years. For example, in 2014, a unique kokoshnik belonging to Olga Nikolaevna returned to Russia. This headdress was made for the tercentenary of the Romanov dynasty. All the Grand Duchesses received the same kokoshniks. The craftsmen of the Starotorsky monastery created these works of art in 1913, when the royal family was in these places. The kokoshniks were decorated with silk and silver threads and precious stones. In the 1930s, they were sold abroad, in particular to the United States. In ancient Rome, unusual tear bottles appeared, which later became popular in the Ottoman Empire and Europe. Translucent vessels were decorated with precious stones and worn on the belt of a concubine, collecting the tears of the padishah in them during campaigns. These items were considered a luxury. The Europeans added pearls to the lids, and the Americans used them during the Civil War, making them out of glass without precious metals. The ring with a large opal, rubies, and diamonds was created for King Alfonso XII as a gift to his wife Maria. Soon, Maria died of tuberculosis. The ring passed to the king's sister, who also passed away. Under pressure from the government, Alfonso married Maria's sister, but she died of illness like the previous queens. After Alfonso's death, the ring was transferred to the Cathedral of Madrid. In 1939, Adolf Hitler, who was interested in mysticism, received it. They say he was wearing the ring on the day of his suicide, although historians deny this. The ring travelled to the USSR and then returned to the Cathedral of Madrid. In Europe of the 18th to 19th centuries, fashion demanded sacrifices. The women wore poisonous outfits and jewelry. Arsenic was used for the green colour of the fabrics, and fresh flowers in the compositions were soaked in it for preservation. Stuffed birds and butterflies on the hats were also treated with chemicals. Some decorated the beetles with gems. Fortunately, fashion has changed, and today women can enjoy safe jewellery made from natural materials. Julia Farese, a 15th century beauty, captured the heart of Rodrigo Borgia with her looks and cheerful personality. Being the official favourite of the Pope, she attended social events, wore luxurious outfits with jewellery. The Pope loved her so much that he ordered her to be depicted in the image of the Virgin Mary, which displeased the clergy. Raphael's painting, The Lady with the Unicorn, may depict Julia. She gave birth to a daughter by Borgia, whom he recognised. After Dad's death, Julia got married. She died at the age of 50 and, according to rumours, could have been poisoned. Her brother, thanks to the support of the Borgias, became Pope. The Russian imperial family possessed enormous wealth, including a precious cross reliquary. Cast in the 17th century from pure gold, it was decorated with gems. However, the main value was the relics of the saints, placed in a recess on the upper part. The cross passed to the royal family from the Tchaikovsky princes in the 18th century. Several generations of monarchs have carefully preserved it in the treasury. In 1917, the Empress gave the cross to Mother Seraphima in Orenburg. After the death of the dynasty, the cross travelled across Russia, passing from hand to hand. In 2001, it was moved to the temple in Ganina Pit, where the remains of the Romanovs were once hidden. The medieval era is a time that gave us many unique items, including precious flea traps. In those days, Europeans cared little about hygiene, and visiting a sauna was considered something unacceptable. Unsanitary conditions were everywhere, and even noble ladies suffered from small insects. Flea traps were invented to combat them. They were made from stuffed furry animals, filled with meat or rags stained with blood. This distracted the fleas, forcing them to focus on the unusual accessory. The scarecrows were often decorated with precious stones. Especially attention was paid to the tiny paws. Diamonds, emeralds, and pearls blended harmoniously into the fluffy fur. The animals' faces were painted with enamels and intricate patterns, turning them into real works of art. The Claddagh ring, symbolizing palms with a heart, originated in the 17th century. The story began with the Irishman Richard Jones, who was captured by Algerian pirates. He was bought by a Moor jeweller and taught the craft. Richard dreamed of returning home and the girl he loved. In memory of her, he created a ring, which later became a symbol of loyalty and love. After the liberation of Irish slaves thanks to King William, Richard returned to his homeland. His beloved waited, and they got married. He opened a workshop and continued to create jewellery. Over time, the design changed. The heart was crowned with a crown. Claddagh rings are popular in England, and Richard's initials are visible on antique copies. According to legend, the first ring sank into the sea, bringing happiness to the finder. Wallis Simpson was famous for her love of jewellery, which was regularly given to her by former British King Edward. Among her luxurious jewellery were tiaras, rings and necklaces, but a modest but expensive bracelet from Cartier jewellers occupied a special place in her heart. The bracelet, ordered in 1936, consisted of a delicate weave with diamonds and a pendant in the form of an aquamarine cross. Edward regularly added new pendants to the bracelet for important events, among which stood out a cross of emeralds, sapphires and diamonds engraved with their wedding date. One of the crosses was made of platinum with the inscription "We." The bracelet also had 9 pendants made of various precious stones. After Edward's death, Wallis continued to wear jewellery, and in the 2000s, her heirs sold the bracelet at auction for $4.5 million. European monarchs have used rings as a symbol of power for centuries. The treasury of the British kings contains the ring of the Stuart dynasty, which began its history in the 16th century under Charles I. The ring is decorated with a large purple ruby with the cross of Saint George and diamonds of a unique shape. It passed from one Stuart to another. The last owner was James II, who gave the ring to the Prince of Wales, who became king. The ring belonged to William IV and Queen Victoria, and in 1831 a similar ring was created for Victoria with a sapphire and rubies in the shape of a cross, symbolising the British flag. Elizabeth II wore her great-great-grandmother's ring during her coronation, following the traditions. Among the treasures of the Norwegian monarchs stands out the amazing emerald tiara that belonged to Josephine de Beauharnais. Her beloved husband created it, and the Baps jewellers brought the idea to life. The tiara was part of a parure with necklaces, brooches and earrings. Napoleon loved generous gifts. Large emeralds of round, square and teardrop shapes are surrounded by diamonds, creating a majestic and feminine image. The parure was inherited by Josephine's son and then by his daughter, named after her grandmother. She became the Queen of Sweden and Norway, adding to the family's treasury. The tiara was passed down from generation to generation until it came to Queen Sonia, who often appears in it at official events. This jewellery remains a symbol of luxury and family traditions of the Norwegian monarchs. The emerald parure of Queen Caroline Amalie is a masterpiece of jewellery created by the German master K.M. Weishaupt in 1840 by order of King Christian VIII. The set includes a tiara, necklace, earrings and corsage jewellery. For his work, the jeweller used emeralds that had belonged to the Danish royal family for centuries. Some of the stones were a gift from King Christian VI to his wife Sophia in 1723. Others belonged to Princess Charlotte. The parure is part of the royal treasury and is kept at Rosenborg Castle. Any visitor to the castle can see the jewels if they are not used by monarchs. Only the Queen or the King's wife has the right to wear a parure. It is important to note that jewellery from the Crown collection cannot leave the country. Therefore, the Queen only wears them at official events and social celebrations in Denmark, such as weddings of family members, New Year's balls and birthdays. The magnificent tiara of the 9 provinces, a symbol of the Belgians' love for Queen Astrid of Sweden. June 29, 2022, marked the 100th anniversary of the wedding of King Leopold III of Belgium and Princess Astrid of Sweden. Their marriage became an example of sincere love and happiness. Astrid was not only charming, but also kind and responsive, which won the love of the people. As a sign of appreciation, the Belgians presented her with a tiara of the 9 provinces, a piece of jewellery that symbolises the unity of the country and the dynasty. This tiara with a meander pattern consisting of 11 diamonds represented the 9 provinces of Belgium and its colony of the Congo, and the 11th stone symbolised the royal family. Astrid treasured this tiara and did not part with it for the rest of her life. Tragically, Astrid died in 1935 in a car accident. Her husband, King Leopold III, was grieving the loss and was in mourning for a long time. After the war, when he lost the trust of the people due to collaboration with the Nazis, Leopold abdicated in favour of his son. The tiara of the 9 provinces has become a symbol of Astrid's memory. On her wedding day, the mayor of Stockholm presented the princess with another tiara, the Stockholm tiara. Astrid wore it as a hair ornament or a brooch. After Astrid's death, her second wife, Lillian Biles, divided the tiara into a bracelet and a brooch. After Lillian's death, her children sold some of the jewellery, including the Stockholm tiara, to an unknown collector. The Bohemian crown. This is one of the oldest crowns that have survived to this day. It reminds me of colourful lollipops strung on sugar sticks. I can imagine how the crown shimmered in the sunlight. It was made in the 14th century for the British Princess Blanch. Regalia was first mentioned in chronicles in 1399. Crown from Thailand. Imagine a jewelled crown weighing just over 7 kilograms and 66 centimetres high. This is exactly the kind of regalia the King of Thailand can boast of. This multi-tiered miracle was created in 1782 for Rama I. Since then, the crown has become an obligatory attribute of the coronation. It is made of gold and decorated with diamonds. The largest stone at 40 carats is crowned by a spire. Looking at this image, I can hardly imagine how to wear this original piece of jewellery on my head. Crown hat of the Swedish prince. That's a really original version of the crown, perhaps the second one you'll find. The precious hat was made in 1650 for Carl Gustaf. The base is covered with soft velvet, and a gold hoop encrusted with gems and pearls is fixed on top. The crown of St. Stephen, one of the few regalia in which precious stones are adjacent to the images of saints. She crowned the heads of 55 Hungarian monarchs and is rightfully considered a national treasure. Coloured enamel looks very advantageous on metal and emphasises the beauty of crystals. You've probably noticed the crooked cross. It was damaged during theft, and then they decided not to restore it so that descendants would remember what happened. The precious lips of the Marquise de Pompadour, who, if not the king himself, can perpetuate the memory of his beloved in art. This is exactly what Louis XV did, creating a unique gemstone cut known as the Marquise. Although many doubt the veracity of this historical legend, it inspires thoughts about a bright and influential woman, Jeanne Antoinette, Marquise de Pompadour. Getting to know the king, Jeanne Antoinette met Louis XIV in 1745, shortly before the costume ball dedicated to the wedding of the Dauphin. At that time, she was married and already had a daughter, who unfortunately died at an early age. Her marriage was not a happy one, and she often spent time in society, enjoying balls and entertainment. The rise of the favourite, the king's favour, was a turning point in the life of Jeanne Antoinette. She quickly took the place of the official favourite and received a private apartment in Versailles, directly above Louis's chambers. Their romance developed rapidly. Soon she moved to the manor, donated by the king, and received the title of Marquise. Jeanne Antoinette's husband could not accept the betrayal and gave her a divorce, influence and luxury. The king admired the Marquise's beauty and intelligence, allowing her to participate in political affairs. Jeanne Antoinette used this opportunity to promote her people to high positions and influence the decisions of the monarch. Her name became a symbol of luxury. Lush hairstyles, stylish interiors, and original costumes were associated with her. Fashion and art. Madame Pompadour introduced the fashion for a special look combining luxury and carelessness. Her style has become a benchmark for many generations. The king, inspired by her beauty, ordered jewellers to cut new gems. This cut, which follows the shape of Jeanne Antoinette's lips, is called the Marquise. Friendship and affection. Over time, the feelings between the Marquise and the king developed into deep friendship and affection. She continued to organise balls, influence politics, and even select mistresses for Louis. However, the king cooled down to her and took the news of her death calmly. The Marquise's legacy, Marquise cutting, has become one of the most popular techniques in jewellery. It is used to create rings, pendants, and other jewelry, giving them a special elegance and brilliance. Modern jewelers, inspired by the story of Jeanne Antoinette, continue to create masterpieces reflecting her style and character. Dior Granville Ring. The Dior Granville jewelry collection is a vivid example of how jewelers are inspired by the life and image of the Marquise de Pompadour. Bright colors, a variety of stones, and original designs make these jewelry a real feast for jewelry lovers. The Marquise cut ring with large chrysoberyls is particularly attractive. The bright stones, framed by diamonds, resemble the rays of the sun lost in a dense forest. This combination of colors and shapes creates an incredibly beautiful and intense effect. The Marquise cut today, Marquise cutting remains one of the most popular techniques in the jewelry world. It gives precious stones a special shape and luster, making them more attractive and refined. Such jewelry will take pride of place in the collection of any jewelry connoisseur. Heavy but luxurious. Teresa of Bavaria's tiara. King Ludwig VIII of Bavaria loved his wife Teresa dearly, kind and devoted. Such unions are rare among monarchical marriages, but Ludwig was lucky. Teresa bore him 9 children. In his speeches, Ludwig often said that he considered his wife to be the best wife and mother. He even claimed that if he could choose a spouse again, he would marry her again. In 1830, Ludwig decided to give his wife an expensive gift and ordered a jeweller's parure made of precious stones from the jeweller Caspar Realender. The king wanted the decoration to outshine all the treasures of the Wittelsbach dynasty. The jeweller spared neither gold, nor rubies, nor diamonds. Ludwig wanted the parure to be heavy and impressive. After many months of work, the realtor presented the king with 6 pieces of jewelry: a tiara, a necklace, chandelier earrings, and bracelets. The tiara was particularly impressive, a huge crown with a pattern of golden twigs and diamond inflorescences. In the center of the composition was a purple spinel with wine-pink reflections, surrounded by rubies and diamonds. The weight of the half parure was enormous, and Teresa rarely wore it. Ludwig admired the beauty of his wife in precious jewelry. He once chose Teresa, despite the fact that her parents wanted her to marry Napoleon Bonaparte. Fate decreed otherwise, and Ludwig became a profitable match for the daughter of a not very rich duke. Interestingly, years later, the ruby tiara was worn by Ruprecht of Bavaria's wife, Crown Princess Antonia. In the photo, she poses in a light outfit with a necklace of large pearls, but the main accent of her image is the same tiara. The emerald tiara of the prince's mother, Victor, ordered the emerald tiara that Elena received for her wedding from the famous jewelry company Musi. For its manufacture, jewelers used emeralds and diamonds from the collection of Victor's mother, Queen Marguerite of Savoy. Marguerite of Savoy, known for her love of jewelry, was an energetic woman. She had conquered several mountain peaks, adored cars, and, unlike Elena's mother, was supportive of her son's wedding to Elena Chernogorskaya. Despite her love of jewelry, Marguerite of Savoy gave her son several large emeralds and old diamond jewelry, from which diamonds were extracted. For Elena's tiara, jewelers used 5 large, high-quality emeralds and a variety of diamonds. Tiara design. The tiara was designed so that emeralds could be replaced with large diamonds. Its frame is made of gold and silver, and there is also a simplified version without prongs with emeralds, more homely and casual. Precious jewelry of noble ladies in ancient Georgia. I have always been attracted by the jewelry art of the ancient masters, especially of the Bronze Age. These artisans created amazing things using primitive tools. Georgia, a major craft center for many centuries before our era, became the place where metalworking began. The technology of metal melting may have been invented by the Kalibam tribe, whose name translates as iron. Written evidence from those times describes the processes of gold mining and processing, as well as jewelry making. Ancient Greek historians mentioned the extraction and processing of precious metals and stones in Colchis, whose capital, according to one version, was the city of Vanni. The largest school of craftsmen was located here, where unique techniques such as forging, cutting, weaving, and others were studied and created. In the Bronze Age, the demand for precious stones increased. People saw how beautiful they looked in jewelry or found symbolic meaning in them. Craftsmen created new techniques for working with metal and capricious crystals. An example of jewelry art is the tomb of the 4th century BC, found near Vanya. A girl from a noble family rested in it, as evidenced by her jewelry. She wore gold earrings with pendants in the form of tassels and figures of horsemen. The work is so subtle that modern craftsmen have a lot to learn. Jewelry played an important role in the lives of our ancestors, revealing their social status, wealth, and biography. For example, the golden tiara found in Vanya belonged to a noble lady. It consisted of 2 braided arcs with diamond-shaped plates with images of animals and pendants with rings. Archaeological excavations confirm the ability of Georgian craftsmen to work with minerals. Processed beads made of sardian, onyx, agate, amber, coral, and rock crystal were found in the graves. Some materials were shipped from other countries. The tomb of a Bronze Age jeweler has become an important discovery for scientists. A large number of jewelry and tools of the master allowed us to better understand the process of making jewelry of those times. The jewelry art of Georgia has been constantly developing. In the 5th century, decorations became more elaborate, with an emphasis on elements such as images of turtles, a symbol of fertility. The craftsmen learned how to work with coloured enamel, and the menagerie technique developed at that time is still used today. Queen Tamar, who ruled from 1184 to 1209, made a great contribution to the development of jewelry. With her, jewelry became an obligatory attribute of wealthy ladies. An example of the skill of jewelers of that era is the royal pendant, in the form of a cross made of gold, decorated with precious stones and pearls. Tamar's jewelry is confirmed by the inscription on the back. Medieval Georgia was the center of jewelry art in the Caucasus and conducted active trade with Egypt, China, Byzantium, and the Russian lands. These countries influenced the work of local craftsmen. They exchanged experiences, adopted new techniques, and shared their own. For example, turquoise processing technology came from Iran, and painting with colored enamels from Russia. In the city of Arkaltsike, jewelers made hollow jewelry and silver belts. There was a school here where craftsmen were taught the techniques of working with metal. Exquisite carved belts with gems were worn by Georgian princes, which spoke of status and good taste. Modern Georgian brands are inspired by the works of jewelers from the ancient world. Popular brands include Kebsari, which specializes in antique silverware, and Natia X Lako, which uses symbolic images of turtles, lions, and other animals. The technique of working with enamel menagerie, known dozens of centuries ago, is actively used by Ketavan Sakhareli craftsmen. The fate of Marie Antoinette's 2 diamond bracelets. The image of Marie Antoinette is invariably associated with luxurious dresses, exquisite hairstyles, and jewelry. On screen, she is often depicted in dazzling outfits that emphasize her passion for jewelry. Although these images are far from reality, they perfectly convey the Queen's love of luxury items. Marie Antoinette spent huge sums on jewelry, which sometimes led to financial difficulties. But it was difficult for her to change her character. The Queen, being far from the common people, did not care too much about their needs. She organized lavish balls, where she had fun until the morning, and then slept only a few hours. Her love of freedom and jewelry can be attributed to a failed marriage. Socializing with other people and the brilliance of diamonds partially compensated for her husband's shortcomings. In 1776, Marie Antoinette purchased 2 diamond bracelets from the famous jeweler Charles Auguste Boehmer. At that time, she already held the title of Queen, and could spend significant amounts on her own needs. However, even these funds were not enough, and the bracelets cost her 250,000 livres, an unthinkable sum for the 18th century. According to some reports, the Queen paid for the jewellery with part of her dowry, diamonds and money that her husband allocated her. However, the reliability of this information remains questionable. The bracelets consisted of 3 rows of diamonds, totalling 96 stones. In the centre, they were connected by hairpins with 3 large crystals, and the clasps were encrusted with 4 stones. These ornaments were distinguished by their laconicism and royal luxury, fully conforming to the lifestyle of Marie Antoinette. Unfortunately, the portrait of the Queen in these bracelets has not been preserved. However, Marie Antoinette's daughter, Maria Theresa, corrected this oversight. In 1816, the artist Antoine-Jacques Gros depicted her in a light dress with gold embroidery and a lot of jewellery, among which were the bracelets. The Queen's daughter looked as gorgeous as her mother, with an original hairstyle and sparkling diamonds. In 1791, Marie Antoinette and her family found themselves in the Tuileries Castle, guarded by guards. Despite the restrictions, she was able to send her attorney, Count Mercy d'Argenteau, a mysterious casket. The wooden box was kept sealed for about 2 years. In the autumn of 1793, the Queen was executed and the casket was ordered to be opened. A treasure that hadn't seen the light of day for 2 years had found a new lease of life. Surprisingly, the government did not keep it for itself. These bracelets went to Josephine Beauharnais, the emperor's wife, known for her love of jewellery. However, fate decreed otherwise. In 1796, Marie Antoinette's jewels were given to her only surviving daughter, Maria Theresa. She escaped the fate of her relatives, but was forced to leave her native lands for more than 2 decades. She had no children, and her entire estate passed to her 3 nephews in her will. The uniqueness of the bracelets lies in the fact that it is the only piece of Marie Antoinette's jewellery that has been preserved in its original form. The cut of the stones, the design and the technique of execution fully correspond to the descriptions in the Brussels inventory book. Perhaps the jewellers were restoring or updating, but the bracelets remained the same in appearance. The rest of the Queen's treasures were melted down or disassembled and became part of other items. For a long time, the bracelets were kept by the heirs of Maria Theresa. But, as is often the case, financial difficulties force people to sell heirlooms. In 2018, the jewellery was first put up for auction and sold to a private collection for $42.7 million. In November last year, the bracelets reappeared at Christie's auction, where they were purchased by an unknown buyer for 7.5 million francs. The stolen tiara. In England, one of these precious artifacts was the magnificent diamond tiara of the Duchess of Portland. This piece of jewellery was kept for a long time at the Welbeck estate, the former residence of the Dukes of Portland in Nottinghamshire. It currently houses a museum. Lovers of antique jewellery could admire this tiara, created at the beginning of the 20th century until 2018. However, this year there was a daring robbery. The criminals entered the mansion 1.5 minutes before the arrival of the guards and took away the jewel. Despite the fact that the British police have developed a sophisticated security system to protect the tiara and other valuables of the mansion, the thieves turned out to be more cunning. They carefully planned the crime and probably intended to bypass the alarm windows. To do this, they made a fake tiara, which they left in the window instead of the original. However, the alarm still went off and the robbers had to flee, criminals and unscrupulous jewellers. For a long time, the police could not find the culprits. Only after some time was the car found, in which the suspects left the crime scene. The car was found burnt out near the mansion. In 2022, part of the gang that committed the robbery was arrested. During the investigation, it became clear that this was not the only crime in which the suspects were involved. In addition to the Portland mansion, they robbed the homes of several other English aristocrats, as well as the homes of two famous British football players. One of the football players was at home during the robbery. The criminals tied up the man and forced him to show where the valuables were hidden. According to him, they behaved cynically and audaciously. The fate of the tiara. The criminals were convicted, and two English jewellers involved in the purchase of stolen goods were also punished. However, the police have not been able to find out where the Duchess of Portland's tiara went. This was a real tragedy for the British, as the tiara was considered a national treasure. Duchess Winifred of Portland, wife of the 6th Duke of Portland William, attended the coronation of Edward VII and Alexandra of Denmark not only as a guest. She was invited to Westminster Abbey as an active participant in the ceremony. During the coronation, along with 3 other duchesses, she carried the mantle of Queen Alexandra. Winifred had carefully prepared for this important event. Her tiara, commissioned by her husband, became one of the most beautiful and expensive tiaras worn at Edward's coronation. Subsequently, the Duchess wore this tiara several more times. After her death, the jewellery was inherited by her descendants. The sad fate of tiara. Despite the arrest of the criminals, many experts believe that the Duchess of Portland's luxurious tiara and her brooch, which were also stolen during the robbery, will never be seen again. The criminals probably dismantled the jewellery and sold the stones on the black market. According to some experts, the diamonds could have been shipped to Turkey. Winifred is remembered as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Alexandra and keeper of the robes of the wife of Edward VII. She was also known as one of the most ardent defenders of animals. Contemporaries described her as a kind, sympathetic and beautiful woman with tall stature, an ideal figure and regular facial features.